Hey everybody, I'm on my way to Auburntown, Tennessee. It's just north of Woodbury, and I have in the back there, it's kind of hard to see the box, but back there is Alfalfa, and today is Alfalfa's Freedom Day. I'm taking him back to where he was found. Interestingly enough, though, I need to change what I'm talking about here because we found out, or figured out, that Alfalfa is actually a girl. So the person who found her wanted to call her Miracle. And if you've seen the pictures, you know that when we first got, we thought it was a him. When we first got Miracle, he had a feather that was sticking straight up on the back of his head. And so we started calling her Alfalfa. And that was incorrect. So we were now referring to her as Miracle, even though she'll always be our little Alfalfa. We are so excited that she has made a complete recovery. You may even see the box bouncing around back there. She is chomping at the bit to go. She has made a full recovery. She's completely healthy, and we are so excited to take her back to the exact spot where we found her. She was not in good shape when we found her, but she is much different now. So thanks for tuning in. You're about to see the whole story. We found her down in a creek. I'll get some video and pictures of that when I get back there to release her. And so today is Freedom Day for Alfalfa, also known as Miracle.
When we got the call about Miracle, she was out on the ground during the day, and obviously owls aren't supposed to be out on the ground, so we knew that there was something wrong. When we got there, I wish I would have had my camera on for the chase and the capture because it was a doozy. Right behind this is a creek that you're going to see here, and when she got away from me, she was so scared she was flying back and forth across the creek, so I got in there up to my knees and chased her around, and she finally landed in the water right about there. So we fished her out with a net, and the poor thing was soaking wet. We could tell that there was a lot wrong with her. She was scared. She had some minor wounds, and she was really favoring that right eye. We weren't really sure what had happened to her, but we knew that she needed to eat. So on day one, we started to get her some medicine and get her fed. As you can see there, she, even though she was hurting, she still wanted to eat. And after a couple of days, when the medicine took effect, you can see the dramatic turn on her eye there. It opened up, and she was actually acting fairly normal at this point. But surprisingly, through the whole process, she was very tolerant of us. She really didn't get upset with us, and you can see there why we call her Alfalfa. That one little feather just would not sit down no matter how much we tried to get it to stay down. So it stood up almost the whole time we had her. But she was so good to work with. She was a wonderful bird, and she started to recover very quickly. So after about a week and a half, she ended up going outside into an outdoor enclosure after she recovered from her serious injuries. And you can see the dramatic coloring there. When she sat in the sun, she was very light colored, but when she was back in the shade, those really dark browns and earth tones would come out in her feathers, and she was just absolutely beautiful. And so outside for a couple of weeks, she got her strength back. She worked on her flight skills. And interestingly enough, on the day we were going to release her, she started favoring that eye again. And after a second examination, we found there was a feather shaft in there, we think from another bird. So we think that she may have gotten into it with another bird, which is how she got injured to start with. But once she recovered, this was on the day that I loaded her in the car to take her back up to Auburntown, which is up in northern Cannon County, to get her released and back home. And she was a little scared there, but that's pretty normal. So once I got her covered up with a blanket and got her windows closed, we made the long drive back up to Auburntown. And while I was getting everything ready, I went to open the door, and she took off like a rocket. They don't normally take off that fast on a release. Sometimes they'll hang around in there. So I thought I had a couple of seconds, but not with Alfalfa. She took off like a rocket and went right up into that tree and sat for a few minutes to get her bearings. And so I picked up the camera to go after her a little bit and get a couple extra shots. She just sat there in that tree, taking it all in. She was free again. She was looking around, and I think she figured out pretty quickly that this was her home turf. This is where she came from. I'll have an arrow pop up here in a second. You'll see exactly where she is up in that tree. She's right in the middle, the little brown dot right there. So she sat there and just took it all in. And, I sat there and just watched for a few minutes, and she looked down at me, just happy as could be to be up there. And then a few minutes later, She finally moved from this spot over to a tree that was right in the creek, right over where I caught her originally. So she was sitting directly over that spot. I'll show you here in a second. When she finally flew out of this tree here, she took off right over to that side, and she sat there for a few minutes right there. It's hard to see her. I'll have an arrow pop up right there. She's sitting right on that branch, and she sat there for a few minutes, and then she took off down the creek. And it was such an amazing release, to go from this day, one photo and the condition she was in, to the day before we released her here, and then to release her right where we got her from, right back on her home turf. It was just a wonderful release, and we're so excited that she's back out in the wild. And we really appreciate you watching our videos. Please check us out on our social media and see what we've been up to with all these wonderful birds that we get to work with, and hope you have a good rest of your day.